What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the December 10th, 2022 edition of the SmackDown LowDown. Jackie Redmond back this week alongside Matt Camp. They did open the show a bit different than usual. The rest of the show was kind of business as usual for the SmackDown LowDown, talking smack, whatever. But they had Megan Morant actually open the show, not in studio, but backstage, kind of walking through the backstage area, recapping quickly, not recapping SmackDown, but kind of previewing what was to come with the guests on the SmackDown LowDown. So I thought that was a nice touch, showing that she was on site at the show on Friday, kind of giving people a run through of who we can expect on the show. Because typically, as they did right after this, they had Jackie and Matt run down the biggest headlines from SmackDown, get into each one as the episode goes on. But the biggest guests are kind of the guests of the show are really the biggest part of the reason to watch SmackDown LowDown and Raw Talk. So kind of promoting that out of the gate in a different way than usual, I thought was cool, so I appreciate that change. But back in the studio, they did run down, as I said, the biggest headlines from SmackDown, including recapping Liv Morgan and Tegan Nox in their first matches as a team, beating Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler in tag team action. Backstage, Megan Morant catches up with Morgan and Nox, who preview facing Damage Control for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles next week on SmackDown. Liv Morgan says they will have each other's backs, and they promise to become tag team champions. Nice little interview promoting the tag team title match for next week. Can't ask for much more than that. We got some mic time from Tegan. I can't complain. Matt Camp previews the match in the studio as well. They also promote John Cena's return to SmackDown, announced on Friday via Variety. In 3 weeks' time, he will be on the December 30th show, so what he has in store, we'll find out in due time. I talk more about that in my SmackDown audio review from earlier today if you want to check that out. Back in the studio, they recap the Usos defeating the Brutes to retain the undisputed WWE Tag Team titles. Matt Camp says as far as who can potentially take down the Usos, the answer is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. They're not going to say that here. But all the teams that he ran down as potentially, possibly beating the Usos, the Brutes, the New Day, the fucking Prophets, I guess, said they want another opportunity on Wednesday's The Bump. No fucking thanks. The Usos have had good matches with all those teams. The common denominator amongst all those teams is that the Usos have beaten them countless times. The Usos have now beaten the Brutes 3 times. Once in September, once in November at Crown Jewel, and again on SmackDown. Granted, it was even a different combination of the Brutes this week. It was Sheamus and Butch and not Ridge and Butch, and they still fucking lost. They beat the Prophets God knows how many times. They beat him at Money in the Bank. They beat him at SummerSlam. They beat him last year at Extreme Rules. They beat him on SmackDown then. The Prophets are done. They've beaten the New Day at least 2 or 3 times. The title's on the line. Time to move the fuck on to other teams. Now, that being said, the teams I'm about to mention are probably not the answer either. They recap Hit Row attacking Viking Raiders and Legado in a segment no one in the audience gave a shit about. Backstage, Megan catches up with Hit Row. Ashanti the Adonis says that they brought the equalizer, but B-Fab says they're still not equal with those other teams as far as they still have yet to get their complete revenge on those teams, and they will next week in that triple threat tag team match. Top Dollar says they only need one shot to take those teams out, and they will get that next week. Matt Camp says, because it's not announced as a number 1 contenders match, but you got to assume the winner of that match could potentially be next in line for a tag team title shot. I assume the Raiders win. The problem with that, though, is that I don't really want the Raiders facing the Usos, because, again, they're another team that have already lost to the Usos, and they're heels now anyway, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I know the Hit Row team isn't exactly over, but at least they would be fresh opponents for Usos on an episode of SmackDown or something in the next month. So personally, I'm kind of hoping Hit Row wins for that reason alone. Anyway, they replay the contract signing, the Intercontinental Championship contract signing with Ricochet and New Day and Imperium. They also recap the Ricochet New Day tag team win over Imperium on SmackDown. Matt Camp previews Gunther and Ricochet for next week for the Intercontinental Championship, and they also recap the final segment with Kurt Angle's birthday celebration being nearly ruined by Alpha Academy before Angle and Gable Steveson milk-trucked Alpha Academy, so to speak. So backstage, Megan catches up with Kurt and Ricochet in the locker room, and Angle says it was an awesome feeling to relive one of his greatest moments in his WWE career from over 20 years ago with the milk truck. Kurt praises Ricochet for the athleticism and the talent he brings to the table. Ricochet reciprocates that respect, and that was really about it. Nice little segment. Nice to see Kurt on the show. They didn't really say much of note, but it was nice. And then to close out the show, Matt Camp is picking Gunther to win next week, which is refreshing because typically they pick the baby faces to win all the time, like the fucking challengers every single time. But Matt Camp ain't dumb. He realizes that Gunther is shown each and every time, especially with the Imperium interference factor, that you don't bet against Gunther, a lot like he does not bet against Roman Reigns. If he's been successful for this long, why would you bet against Gunther, especially having him already having beaten Ricochet twice before? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for Ricochet to win this match, and honestly, I hope he doesn't. And they also promote NXT Deadline for tonight on Peacock. So that was the SmackDown LowDown for December 10th, 2022. Thank you guys for checking out my review. Kind of a nothing show here, but again, I appreciate the different opening. The Hit Row interview was fine. The Livin' Knox interview was nice while it lasted. I love Tegan Knox, so great to see her here. And I thought the Kurt and Ricochet interview was well done as well. So they got a lot of people on the show. They got 3 members of Hit Row. They got Kurt. They got Ricochet. They got Tegan. They got Liv. They packed a lot of people into a very short time frame. So I appreciate that, if nothing else. But thank you guys, as always, for checking out my review of the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. If you haven't already, like I said earlier, check out my full audio review of Friday Night SmackDown from earlier in the day here on the channel. That being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.